When I stand, okay. Good evening. Welcome to the first Kyle Army Schools Lekgotla. We are delighted to have approximately 20 people online. Good of you to join us. Thanks very much for accepting the invitation. We've got members of staff here and production crew, and we've got an ex-parent of the college and an ex-parent of two children at KPS who's here this evening as well. We may well have one or two others joining us here in the venue itself. As I explained in my letter to parents on the 26th of February, the intention tonight is to just start a process, to start the first of what we hope will be a series of these Lekgotlas, or coming together. We could probably have called it Bosporat, or we could have called it or just a gathering, but I decided to use a Tswana name because that's where I've been based for the last 4 or 5 years, out in Northwest Province. The purpose is really to sort of come together, as the logo indicates, to come together, to share together, to work together, and hopefully succeed. And I'm going to be, in the next few minutes, possibly 10 minutes, just take you through the strategy work that has been done by the board, by the executive, and by the senior management over the course of the last 2 years. It's not complete. It requires detailing and final implementation, and that's what this is about, because perhaps members of our community, parents, alumni, etc., might want to become involved in that process. The strategy was developed by the previous CEO, Gary Buerta, along with the executive of the company and the management, starting in mid-2019, into quite a significant workshop in November 2019. And then, of course, just as we were about to start doing the implementation last year, the COVID pandemic and the level 5 lockdown happened, and everything sort of went into disarray or went back on the back burner until such time as we could get back to it. And it only really came back on the agenda towards the end of last year. I've taken up the position of CEO at the beginning of this year, and part of my responsibilities is to ensure that this process is completed and that we're able to implement it. First and foremost, let's just maybe lay a few things on the table here. These schools did not exist 26, 27 years ago, none of them. What has been achieved in all of these schools that are part of the Kyle Army Schools group is quite extraordinary, actually. These are a group of non-profit schools under the umbrella of a non-profit company that was founded in 2012, and they have thrived in the time that they were founded, starting with BPS back in 1996 under Noel Hillen's leadership, and then we had Kyle Army Prep being founded in 1999, and the following year we had the college, and then we had the 2 nursery schools that came on board. So at the moment we are a company with 5 divisions, 2 prep schools, 2 nursery schools, and a secondary school college. And that's where we stand at the moment. There aren't that many profits in the country that have got that kind of structure. And what that allows us is quite a flexibility, and it also means that we've got room for growth and for doing things differently. A non-profit means exactly that. We do not extract. Nobody makes money out of this. Essentially, everything that we make or everything that is spent on the schools, and that's the way it will stay. And the schools have done well since they were founded. So everything we're going to be talking about in this strategy is a case of building on good foundations. At the same time, the operating environment in the last 5 or 6 years has changed significantly. This area has been one of the fastest growing areas in the country, and whereas we were in a green situation 15, 20, 30 years ago, with being the only school in town, now in actual fact, you can travel maybe 4 or 5 blocks and you'll find another new school. Most of them for-profit schools. In actual fact, virtually all of them for-profit schools, which means that the owners of those schools extract for their shareholders out of those companies and out of those campuses. So challenging times because we've got more competition than we had in the earlier days. There's also a case of when new competition comes to town and you've got a different operating context, you possibly ask yourself, well, what sets us apart? And I think we've been challenged by that in the last few years as more and more competition have come. They've had fancy, bright, shiny new facilities. and we've been around for a while longer. We're not old by any manner or means, but we've had to ask ourselves again, what is it that we offer that perhaps these new kids on the block, if you want to call them that, don't? And I'm still in that process, and it's one of the processes that we're working through this year with the management team. But the key question is, do we have confidence in the future? Well, you wouldn't devise a strategy unless you had confidence in the future. I personally believe that there's immense potential in these schools to become beacons for excellence in the context of being co-educational, being multi-level, and operating in some of the most fantastic campuses in the world, and accepting at the same time that within 5 to 10 kilometers of those campuses, you've got some of the most destitute people in the world as well. We can find the whole world actually in the of the area we operate from. So, strategy is built on values and action. When these schools were started, first one, BPS, I'm not even sure it existed, but there was a meeting held at Kyalami Country Club where a couple of local people with a bit of vision invited other local people to come along and said, we think we should start a community school. We don't think that there's an existing school that perhaps totally suits our needs. And out of it, there were two major shareholders who put their pockets deep into their pockets, actually, to find most of the money. And there were some other people who bought minor shares, and the school was built. And it was built in an incredibly quick time. It was a matter of 8 or 9 months. And the founding principal, Noel Hillen, was appointed, and the school opened on time at the beginning of 1996. And Noel and the school celebrated their 25th anniversary at their opening assembly of this year, February. An awesome achievement. It was all done through vision and commitment of community. I think that's something that I've seen quite clearly, is that values and community in particular shines through in virtually everything that happens at this school. There's something special here, and we need to make sure that we don't ever lose that as we talk about becoming maybe more technical and more strategic. The process that was used by the management executive and the board last year, in terms of being the strategic plan, was a typical balanced scorecard. Those of you who operate in business will know this very, very well. And I'm just going to put it out there for you. So you've got the strategy itself. And you essentially, in a school like this, you would start off with learning and growth goals. You certainly would have family goals. You would have operational goals. And if you're doing good stuff with your stakeholders, your families and community, if you're doing good stuff with your learning and growth and your growing people, and in a school context, that would be the school and the staff in the school. And if you're doing good things in terms of the quality of your delivery and your business process, the finances should look after themselves, actually. That's what you're looking for. So from this point of view, we're saying that you've got a four-way strategy, a four perspective that is being used. And these are all interlinked. So during the course of the last 2 months, we've been spending quite a lot of time trying to understand how these are linked, trying to understand the importance of stakeholder engagement, parent engagement. Tonight didn't just happen because the new CEO felt like having a bit of a gig online. It happened because this is part of a process to say we need to be talking to one another. It's difficult to get here. We know that. That's why the venue itself is really empty. So we can get to each other other ways. Email can be impersonal. This is a way of doing this. And for those who couldn't get here tonight and couldn't get online, this will be videoed, recorded, and posted later on so that the message can be shared. We've got all of these things linked together, and between them, they eventually create a virtuous circle which creates positivity into the strategy, and the strategy begins to gain momentum. I'm just going to take you through each of these in turn. Not in too much detail, but just enough maybe to get an understanding of what we're trying to do here. The operational goals. It starts with having demonstrable quality improvement. Now, quality improvement means 100 different things in a school. It could be that the level of the curriculum that we deliver is superior, is improving, that the quality of the results and the performance of the children in the school improves. It could also mean that the quality of your engagement with the bursar's office improves. It could also mean that at front desk and reception you feel this place is really striving hard to be working on that. It could also mean online, that you can see things reflecting about the school that give you a sense of connection. So quality is something that is multidimensional, and we're going to be working on at least 4 or 5 different aspects of that this year. Productivity improvement. Productivity improvement is essential because you can't have all that you want all of the time. You can't have all your wish lists. And I have to say, in my initial few months in the job and in my reading last year, I do think that perhaps the leadership of the company wasn't tested sufficiently up until maybe 2016, 2017, because we could dream, we could wish, and we could build, and we could grow as we pleased without having to worry too much about getting it wrong. Then some schools open up. Kids that we thought might have been coming to us were going elsewhere. We're not growing as fast as we used to. That surge that went the better part of 20 years is beginning to slow down, and therefore you're now facing the reality that you got to make some tough choices. And we had to make choices that have not been easy to make, and I think we're going to be continually challenged with the same thing for the next couple of years. Productivity means things like, are our teachers working what would be considered an appropriate timetable? Or are they perhaps a little bit light on load? Are teachers going home at 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the afternoon, when in actual fact they might be here until 5:30, as there would be in some of the top schools in the country? These are the questions we need to ask, and we're currently going through a benchmarking exercise on that. It's not just about teachers. Productivity improvement means that we get more value for our spend all the way through. Innovation in the curriculum, it's essential. It's been a big challenge for us, actually, as to how do we respond to the new competition around us, what they offer. My own view is that this school, as I said earlier on, has the potential to be one of the top co-ed schools in the country. If I look in this particular region, I would put ourselves close to schools like Red Hill, for example, in Morningside. Incredibly strong academic offering, good all-round program, also values-driven. A school that has grown immeasurably in the last 15 to 20 years. We can do something similar, I believe. Not that we want to ape any other school, but we want to do it in our own way. We're certainly not trying to be a Curo or a Redford or anything else like that. Our value proposition isn't at a price that's half of ours. Our value proposition is probably at a price that's slightly higher than what we're currently asking for. And we got to demonstrate that all the time. That will be through innovation in curriculum. Another part of the school, and I mentioned it in my letter last week on the 26th, is a sports strategy. I don't think any school in the modern world can say that it's all about sport. Maybe some of the monastic schools, particularly boys' schools, can do that because it's such an important part of their heritage and their spirit in the school. But generally speaking, most of our parents are primarily concerned with the academic standard. Is my child going to achieve a matric result that will be appropriate for his or her talent? Will that child be able to get to university into the course of his or her choice? And those are more important than perhaps sport. But at the same time, a broad offering and a high quality sports offering is essential for us to consider. We've just launched, literally in the last week or two, a process where we're going to be bringing together people within the community, including staff, alumni, parents, ex-parents, to talk about sport in the school. And that's going to be, what should children be able to do in terms of wellness? What should their core strength be? What should their balance and coordination and their resilience be at grade 2, grade 3, grade 6, grade 7? When they get to the college, what should we be offering here? And I think you're going to find that there will be quite a lot of information on this coming around in the next couple of months. We intend to get to a situation where all of our schools will have a strong sports strategy. It will be staffed by well-qualified, appropriately qualified people, and we're going to have some really, really good facilities. And I could start perhaps by saying the facilities across the road from here, because we're currently at Bolu College this evening. Those facilities across the road that have been incomplete and unfinished for the better part of 5 years now, those need to be completed, and we need to be using them within the next 12 months as far as I'm concerned. And we need therefore to have that strategy in place so we know how to use them. The next part is family goals, a crucially important part, and this is part and parcel of that. And that would be how satisfied are our parents and our pupils? I'm just going to move to the other side quickly. Well, I think over the course of the last few years, there have been surveys among parents and alumni perhaps, but maybe it hasn't been as thorough and as consistent and as comprehensive as it needed to be. I would suggest that we need to be engaging with parents and alumni and pupils in the school and talking about where we are, what we're doing. Focus groups, small snap surveys, just to gauge where we are on an ongoing basis. Also having things like exit surveys with matric parents as they leave, or even indeed with matrics themselves, or with the grade 7s out of our prep schools and their as well. All of these things are really important because we need to know how satisfied our community is in order to be able to gauge how well we're doing what we think or we claim to be doing. We also want to engender loyalty. An elder sibling come to one of our schools and a younger sibling go somewhere else because the parent feels, I don't like the value proposition in that particular case. And from that point of view, I think we're looking at loyalty so that we can have multiple siblings from the same families coming through, that we can have intergenerational loyalty coming through as well in time. And we're probably a little bit too young for that right now, but it's getting there. And thirdly, that we will also have loyalty in terms of alumni and possibly giving back to the school in due course when some of our alumni are getting to the age where they've got the means to be able to do that. One of the things that has struck me about the children that I've encountered at these schools, and I will say that I've probably spent more time at this particular campus than most other campuses, and this is the college campus. I currently sit on 2 other school boards. I have, over the course of my career, on about 7 or 8 different school boards. I've been the head of a school, deputy head of a school. I've done a lot of developmental work in schools. And I can say without fear of contradiction that the process that I see, or the engagement that I see on this campus, is amongst the finest that I've ever come across. The students at this school are extraordinary. There's an empathy, there's a friendliness, there's a hospitality, there's a goodness about them. And from that point of view, I think we've got something that we should really be careful that we don't lose it. In all of this other strategy talk, the good nature and the well-balanced nature of the students that we've got here needs to be maintained and protected. And then we need to show the path to the future to our parents. Do I need that? Okay. People here needs to know exactly what it is that is being asked of them. So that means that from my own point of view, I need to know what the board is asking of me, and then everybody on the executive needs to know exactly what I need them to do in order for me to deliver on my objectives and the board's objectives, and so on and so on. We cascade this down. It's not something that's well established in the company at the moment or in the schools, and we need to improve on that in the course of the next 12 to 18 months. Staff professional growth, which is allied to what I've just said. We need staff that are growing. There was a South African motivational speaker called Dr. David Malapo that I've heard a couple of times who had this phrase, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think we have to ensure that our staff at all of our campuses are continually growing so there's no chance of them dying. We also need organizational knowledge growth. We need to be growing as an organization. That's at the company level and in all the divisions and in any other divisions we might acquire in the future. And this is a big one. And please, not just because it's the last point here doesn't mean that it's the least of them, not at all. Diversity of our staff should reflect the diversity of our schools. If one was to go down to Kyalami Prep School or Bolu Prep School or Bolu College and look at the photographs of their leavers, their grade 7s at the 2 preps or the matrics at this school over the course of the last 20 years, the profound change in the demographics of the school is right in front of you. You can see the diversity growing practically by the year. And yet, if you look at the teacher's photograph, it's hardly changed in most cases. Well, something's clearly wrong there. That would apply teachers in the classroom, that would apply at middle management, that would also apply at senior management and leadership in the schools. These are all challenges that all schools, all organizations are challenged with in South Africa. Not a negative challenge, but a positive challenge, because surely our students are going to do better and feel like they belong more. Our parents are going to belong more if the schools they walk into with their children and to support their children will reflect them to a better level or to a higher degree. And that's going to be something we're going to be working on very, very carefully and progressively in the next 2 or 3 years. Finally, in terms of the different goals here, we've got financial goals. And from that point of view, I think it's generally known that the school started because of the goodwill and the vision of the founders. This company didn't have to outlay any money to acquire the schools. But the people who built the schools built them on trust. And in actual fact, as the schools grew, they built more and bought more and got more land. It's an extraordinary thing that has been done. Let me say it hasn't been without its difficulties and awkwardness. But the fact is, these schools could not have existed if we did not have those founders who were willing to put their money on the table and to get out and put foundations down and build the schools and lay the fields and put the grass in. But we're in a position right now where approximately, roughly, we own about 37% of the properties on which we operate our schools. We believe that that's a situation that we have to correct, and it's our goal that over the course of the next 10 years, the schools will be operating on land that we will own. So the leases for Bolu College and the lease for Bolu Prep School and Bolu Nursery School are due for renewal at the end of this year, and we're going to be looking to negotiate a new set of leases that will effectively become a lease purchase kind of agreement over the next decade. In addition to that, we have plans to purchase the property on which Kyalami Prep School and Kyalami Nursery School are situated. This is a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a cheap proposition, but then again, property in this area does not come cheaply. We think we'll still have a wonderful, wonderful campus opportunity over this. It probably means that we're going to have to commit to certain financial deliverables for the next 5 to 10 years so that we were going to be able to get lenders, a top-tier bank to support us in this. And I'm hoping that within the next 6 months or so, I'm going to be able to share with the community exactly how we're going to go about that. And that's going to be something that will be top of my list of things to do with the board and with the other shareholders over the course of the next 6 months. We also want to grow enrollment. I personally believe that this school, the college, has got immense potential for further growth, apart from the fact that the campus allows for it. It really has a good brand. It's growing in number every single year. It's growing even when times are tough. This year has been bigger than last year, and that's a positive thing to say about a school. And we think that we can possibly grow it considerably to go to a 5th stream or maybe even a 6th stream in time, and that could include introducing boarding, weekly boarding opportunity, so that we can bring children in from further afield. And that would be run as its own separate business unit. It wouldn't necessarily be an encumbrance on the principal or the head of the school. We would run that as a separate entity, and it would be a high-quality boarding experience. That has to be on the table, otherwise we're going to be restricting our catchment area. We need to develop our facilities. I already mentioned the sports facility. Definitely has to be done. Perhaps if there was a strategic error of any major significance in the last 2 or 3 years, is that when we saw that the competition was growing, and also last year when we saw that COVID was upon us, instead of looking for operational efficiencies and improving our productivity perhaps, we decided that we would postpone capital development or new projects. And what that means really in a school's environment is if you stand still, you're actually going backwards. And I think to a certain extent, we've gone backwards in the last couple of years, and that we need to start moving forwards again. And that means we need to show that we're confident about the future, and we need to show that we're investing, and we need to show the current generation of children and parents in the school that we want to give them the best facilities right now, not that it's going to happen sometime in the future. And I believe, and I'm absolutely certain that we can do that and purchase the property at the same time. And finally, I do think we need to broaden our offering in some ways, and that might mean maybe a new acquisition of a different type of school to round out our offering, but it could also just mean new aspects of curriculum, new aspects of doing things. It might even mean an online school. I can't say for sure, but we will continually be looking for that because they can also be excellent ways of generating new income. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the presentation. It's high level. It's not meant to be detailed, etc. So to the folk here in the room and also to the people at home, if you have some questions, that'd be fantastic. Mark Naidu, our group head of academics, who used to previously be the deputy head at this school, is the moderator tonight, and Mark is following the questions being posted online, so he will read out some of those questions. I hope that there are some questions, actually. Nothing yet, so please start typing your questions as soon as you can, and we'll start going from there. We've got plenty of time. I've been speaking for approximately 20 minutes, so we could probably go on for another 20 minutes if you like. Alternatively, those of you who perhaps don't have questions, I want you to bear this in mind as well, and that is you can send an email at any time to me. You can also send us further suggestions about aspects of this strategy or aspects of the school's operation, not necessarily just this school, but all of our schools' operation, and we would put that into perhaps the next Lekgotla. So we're waiting for the first question.
Thank you, Tom. I think my question is going to be around how is it in the strategy that you are foreseeing including parents and alumni in getting this strategy going, getting it motivated, getting it working? How do you sort of expect, or are you intending for parents and alumni to become involved?
Thank you, Sandy. You know, the 5-star independent school experience is not just about getting a top-class education for your children. It's also getting a place that makes you feel happy to be part of, to be welcome in, to be able to go along to an event, be it musical, cultural, sporting, or just social, and feel like there's something extra here. I am networking and developing friendships and relationships with others that I wouldn't have met had I not come to this school. These networks are incredibly important. And I honestly do think, and it's one of my observations in my first few months, is that there has been a defensiveness amongst some of our management and executive around, you daren't let parents in too often or get too close because they'll be critical. And they might ask you awkward questions, and we don't always have the answers. If we don't invite parents in to come and see us in more relaxed surroundings, more often in different contexts, we're not going to pick up the little signals about how maybe we're failing or falling short, and we're not going to be able to see the areas where they're able to say, if you did this instead of that, it would make the world a difference. So certainly the family goals section is a huge part of it, and it's not just talking about the children's performance. It's not a PTF thing. It's not a PTA, parents-teacher meeting. It's actually saying, you're a parent investing heavily in our schools, and let's be frank, if your child goes through from even just grade 0 through to matric, you're talking about a couple of million rand that you're putting in here. We owe it to you to help you feel that you belong here, and that you can pop in here for a social event and have a conversation and expect to meet people who work here, maybe people who went to school here previously, etc. And building those networks is an essential part of building great schools. There isn't a single great school in this country that doesn't have that kind of welcoming up situation, be it with a glass of wine or a beer or a barbecue or whatever it might be. We need to be doing more of that. We need to have much more sort of shorts and slip-slops and a t-shirt kind of thing where we can hang out together, I think.
Do I need to ask you questions, or do you mind if I make this experience. I don't know what kind of parents we're talking to. So I would just like to respond from our experience through our own two children having attended Kyalami Prep and our daughter having attended Bolu College. I'm sitting in the room today with people I am incredibly grateful to, particularly here at the college. The college opened up an opportunity for my daughter, who, when she was in grade 8, was at Cedarwood, and the college opened up an opportunity for her, because of her love for horses, to come and repeat grade 8 here and to matriculate with a bachelor's pass. And this is a student who academics is not her strength, but there are people in this room today I am incredibly grateful for. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that I had for meeting parents, even with my son when he was at Kyalami Prep, sitting at the Astro here at the college and watching hockey. Inter-house galas here at the college. There are wonderful opportunities for getting parents at all of your schools in a more informal setting where these conversations can be started, where they can be begun. And I just want to say that, especially for those of you who may be online and who are listening to us, who are new to the Kyalami family of schools, I do not think that you have made a poor choice. I think you're putting your confidence in some really absolutely incredible educators and people who really care about the well-being of your child. And that goes right back from us to grade 0 at Kyalami Prep, to all the way through to grade 12 here at Bolu College. I also do want to say that for those students who may not choose the college as their next step, because they may be choosing another school that our countries, where you can and it's affordable to you, offer you wonderful choices. I do want to tell you that for your children who are at either of the prep schools, they are getting the best foundations they can have for achieving academically all the way to matric and beyond, because of the Kyalami family of schools.
Tom, we've got a couple of questions coming in. So the first one is, what is the strategy around sport at the Kyalami Schools group? And will we be linked to that is, will the school open up bursaries into other sports other than hockey and swimming and equestrian?
Thank you. I don't want to preempt a process that is intended to be inclusive and collaborative as we develop this sports strategy. But let me say this. We believe that the sports strategy is going to be a group strategy. In other words, it's going to be for all of our schools, not just for one, or that each one's going to have a different strategy. It's going to be a coherent, comprehensive strategy across all the schools. It will, as I say, start from things like, are children water safe? Can they swim? Can they ride a bike? Can they climb a rope? Can they climb a hill? Things for little children just getting ready for the realities of life. The second thing would be, we want participation in our sports at the schools. We also want to make provision for those kids who've got particular talents in sports to feel that they can develop those talents to their fullest extent in our schools. But you know what? We can't offer that in all sports. We just can't. It's not the way it can happen. So therefore, we have to make some choices. So the way I see this would be that there will be a sports strategy for the group, and I think that sports strategy is going to cascade out of this campus. This campus at Bolu College is one of the finest in the country, bar none, okay? and that we can have the facilities, especially when the sports facilities across the road are completed, to be able to deliver some of the finest school facilities in the country. We're going to staff it. We've already got several top-class staff. We will ensure that it's staffed with high-quality people. And furthermore, that all of our children have an opportunity to access it. Those staff and those facilities will be available to all our children. It might mean occasionally that kids from the KPS campus or the BPS campus actually jump in a bus and come up here, so that they actually use the facilities that we're developing here as opposed to trying to do the same thing down there. That makes no sense at all in actual fact. It could mean that the staff who are based here will be on the other campuses at a particular time every week, doing certain of the activities, part of the strategy, etc. So that will probably mean that we are going to focus on sports that we think we do well. And I mean, it doesn't require a PhD to figure out that this school does equestrian well since probably the first year. That's always going to be part of the culture of this school. Secondly, the hockey academy has been incredibly successful. But, you know, our kids do astro hockey here, and they do indoor hockey at another school down the road, Four Ways High School. That doesn't make any sense. That means our sports facility across the road has got to have indoor hockey capability. Otherwise, we are not providing for an area of existing strength. We also, at this stage, we've already got excellent netball. If the interest is there and we've got good quality, why shouldn't we develop it further? Just taking those three as an example. Then we're going to have to look at things and say, practically, we can't offer everything. I personally believe, and I am a rugby fanatic, have been a first-team rugby coach, I've got provincial rugby qualifications. I don't see how sports like 15-a-side rugby can operate at a school like this. I think it'd be far more interesting if we had sevens rugby, for example. These schools were founded at a time of transition in the country, and even though they were new, they were still relatively traditional. I think the opportunity is there for some of our schools, our top schools, to say we're going to take soccer really seriously, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. And secondly, that we would look at sports like basketball, where the participation is huge. Out in my previous job in Northwest, we had a strategic partnership with NBA Africa that was one of the most significant programs in the whole of the Royal Bafokeng Nation. It was powerful beyond belief. Then you start thinking, oh, hang on a second, how many children have you got in the school? Well, actually, we've only got 100 per year group at the moment. That's about 50 boys and 50 girls, so there's only so much we can do. So we're going to have to decide which comes first, which comes next, which comes after that. And then as we grow the schools, and particularly we grow the college, we can begin maybe to offer more. Part of the facilities across the road is an aquatic center. So there definitely will be an aquatics as part of that strategy. Whether it's swimming or water polo or a combination of the two, I can't say at this stage, but it's going to be on the agenda, that's for sure. The second part of the question mark was, we already offer support by way of bursaries for hockey. Would that be extended to other sports? Well, the founder of the Hockey Academy and the person who funded the Hockey Foundation had a specific and particular interest in hockey. I actually sat with that individual last Friday afternoon, had a wonderful few hours together, and his passion for the school, his appreciation for the school and what it did for his children, and his delight at what's come out from that hockey idea and that hockey vision was so palpable. But it's for hockey. That Hockey Academy and that foundation will remain for hockey. If we want to create other foundations for other sports, we're going to have to start by raising funds, and or we may have to say, if we're serious about doing some of these sports, we may have to provide discounted places for at least one or two children in each of the following strategically important sports over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. So that means we expense spaces. I'm not getting ahead of myself here. I'm just saying that's probably how it's going to be done. Unless we can find another amazingly generous funder as hockey did 10 years ago. I would like to think that the existing scholarship roster that we have at the college will be expanded to include at least some of the strategically important sports, and it'll be part of the costing as part of a strategic expense, if you like, and it'll be done in a thoroughly transparent and rigorous manner, so that we can hold everybody accountable for the decisions that are made. Any others, Mark? Right, folks. I think we've been going now for 40 minutes. We were hoping maybe to run around 40 to 45 minutes. So I hope that you found it useful. Those of you online, I think there are a couple of people, I looked at the list earlier on, who had contacted me about the sports. You'll be receiving direct invitations from us to participate in the brainstorming session that is probably going to take place in the last week of the month. We have a board meeting on the 24th, and then we'll be going into some of that discussion around sports before we break up. The schools go on holiday on the 14th of April, I think. So we've got 2 or 3 weeks to try and get some work done on that. Can I also say, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the fact, and to the parent who came, ex-parent who came, thanks for being here, for all the staff who are here, and for everybody in the production team, thank you for making this happen. We're hoping, as I say, that this is not a once-off, and that we will have these going on a regular basis, possibly every 3 or 4 weeks going through to the end of the year. And depending on the nature of the questions, and depending on the level at which the questions sort of come in from, we might find that there might be one of these Lekgotlas who will talk about the college specifically, and Mrs. Mikkel is here, or it could be about BPS or the preps in general, or the nurseries, in which case I would probably be joined here by my colleagues who head up those particular campuses for us, all right? But in the meantime, folks, if you'd like to send an email to the KS Lekgotla address, the same address you would have used to register for this event. If you would like to do that in the next couple of weeks, that would give us an idea perhaps as to what we might be able to offer for you on Wednesday the 31st, when hopefully we're going to do this again. Once again, to the production team, to the people in the house, and to the people at home, thank you very much. And we will be publishing the record of this within the next couple of days. Thank you very much. Good night.